Welcome back to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. This is Juliette Hahn, and I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel. How are you? Happy St. Patrick's Day. Look at you wearing your green.
I'll be back. I got to go catch a running leprechaun.
Yeah, and I can see you being like, I don't feel like doing it. This has been an episode today because Mercury is in retrograde. We're like late. And so you're like, okay.
No. Who's late?
I am late. I am late. I am late because my computer was fucking with me. And as we always do.
Open up another tab.
I actually, when it opened up, I had like all the things that were like, oh, this. I was like, oh shit, I did have a lot of stuff open. It's because so when I go back, I can, okay, this is an attention deficit moment. When I go back, I can see it. Just like when I have my bills, I need them on the counter. If they go in a drawer, I forget about them. If I have my favorite sweater, it goes in the drawer. I forget about it. If I close the tab, it's gone. So I have to have everything opened.
But I don't have more than, one tab open, maybe two. At most, way most. But how do you can't find, there's so fucking many of them on there that you can't see them anyway. So
I can see them and I know exactly where they are, actually.
You're over 50. Remember, you're blind, so you can't see them. So what are you talking about?
They're big. I can see them.
They're not.
Actually, mine are, I can read every single one.
Yeah, you got the special fucking Juliet Apple.
No. And they're actually not large. My phone, I don't have anything. My apps, like all my friends have their apps that are like the big, and when they type, they're big. I don't have to do that yet. So you listen here, sir.
You're the one that's telling me that you're old blind.
I can't see far. I can see close. That's starting to go, but this is not what this episode is about.
Yes.
Special needs,
Chase
though.
That leprechaun. Chase that leprechaun.
Well, so you kind of did that this week. Why don't you share why your green hoodie and what you did on Saturday? So this is Monday, St. Patrick's Day. This will be out obviously in a couple weeks, but there's some big stuff.
I was trying to find the pot of gold. Didn't fucking find it.
I was going to have that go.
I found a lot of empty 4-gallon jugs that high school kids were drinking and puking everywhere. Here in Chicago, obviously, the plumbers union, which is one of the biggest unions here, in Illinois. All right, yes, Democratic state, yes, unions. They dye the river green, and the foundation had a float, in the St. Patrick's Day parade. So they say that there's average a couple 100,000 people, and it was 65, so it was beautiful. Everybody on our float got made these for them. Half the time I had this on, and half the time I had my T-shirt on. So the weather was perfect. I think they said it was the nicest weather for a St. Patrick's Day parade ever.
Ever. They did, because I was watching it on Hulu.
And is that what they said? Did they say that for weather-wise?
They said it was eccentric. They didn't say ever, but they said pretty much, they were like, I think this might be the best day. It's definitely in the last, 20 some years. They said it was the best.
Woke up to, I think it was 25 degrees and snowing. And, there's still snow on the ground. So we went from, amazing 65. Sun was coming out. It was a little bit windy, but the T-shirt weather to the next day, which I didn't know until recently. Again, St. Patrick's Day parade was, I've never actually been to it. I've lived here in Chicago 17 years. And that was the first time that I've ever been downtown for it. At 10 a.m. they go and dye the river green, and you've got thousands of people go for that. And then at noon, just half mile down the road is where the parade is. So there's for the foundation, the exposure, we weren't a union. You had every union had floats in there, and you had family floats, and um, people were drunk as a skunk. I think our float was only, we had kids obviously on there. There was no consumption alcohol on our float, so everybody on our float was sober. So I can guarantee that we won the soberest float in the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Well, it's good to win things.
Oh, that's like getting a hero cookie, right? Yeah.
Right, that's true. or a team participation award.
Oh yeah, it was so it's experience for, and Elizabeth and I had never been downtown for it. Obviously when I was playing, we're always gone, or we had games or practice, so would never go down there. Stop drinking. I had no reason to go down there. I think the bars open up at 7 a.m. Yeah, so like green everywhere and puking everywhere, and but as far as you can see, there's people watching the parade in trees.
I was gonna say they televised that this was the first year that it was so deep. And if you guys want to look at any of this, there's some footage on Sopel Foundation for Dyslexia, the Instagram, or in LinkedIn, or for the Sopel Foundation as well. And you can see some videos, which is, we have a couple when Brent and Elizabeth first saw the float, and then as they were setting up, and then them on the float, and then also it was televised on ABC7 local Chicago, but on Hulu. Yeah. So I was able to watch it from New York. And they were even, the correspondents, they even shouted out the Sopel Foundation for Dyslexia, which was really cool, and gave the 1 in 5 diagnosis, those statistics. And tell us a little bit why you and how you became, a part of the float. I mean, about the parade. Like, how did that all come about?
Friends of ours, Garwood Securities, now become a pretty good big sponsor with the foundation. Obviously become really good friends, with the family, and they were a part of the sponsorship for the parade, but they didn't want the float. So I got a call, I guess a couple months ago. Oh, you want to float in a parade? What the fuck are you talking about? Now I got to build a float. So I had no idea what he's talking about. Never built my own float. Never had, been in many parades, right? Participated, obviously the Pride Parade, things like that. I was told to show up and be there or not. Design a float and get people on there and do all that stuff. So we talked about it and said, yeah, we'll take it. St. Patrick's Day Parade is, again, as big as you get here in Chicago. So for the exposure for the foundation to be a part of it, and what goes into setting it up. Obviously, Michelle Coyne, who runs the foundation, and Jim Coyne, her husband, who runs the Plumbers Union, what they have to do to put this thing together. Like the cops, obviously Chicago police, they had their helicopter up scanning like the crowd, like especially nowadays, right? It's not like we were talking before we got on here. In our heyday, all the stupid shit we did, there was no cell phones, there was no parades, there's just the security. Obviously you take a look at what happened New Year's in New Orleans, right? Streets are blocked.
You can't be too careful these days.
Can't be too careful. Like there was, salt trucks with the plows down, loaded with salt for extra weight, lined up everywhere. Like it was, again, so for what they had to put together, it was pretty amazing. And we found parking, probably the highlight of the day.
I know you were so anxious about that.
$11.99 cost us to park for 4 hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right. That's right.
God,
We're
fucking
like,
in New York City, it's you can't get anything under like 50, 70. Every time I go, I'm like, oh my God, I was there for an hour. Like I had to do an errand and I'm there for an hour and I paid $80.
yeah. Well, that's what Chicago is too.
Yeah. Wow,
It's
that's
one of
so
the
good.
yeah. I'm thinking like it's $11.99 a minute. Nope. I think it costs for 9 hours that parking spot, which was right across the street from where we need to be. So we had to walk
See.
because a couple blocks out is where they blocked everything off. So you had to park, and kind of walk through. So I had to walk like 3 blocks, and I come back and like $11.99 for 9 hours.
That is incredible. Okay, so I have some questions for you. And I know you're going to be like, oh, okay. Yep. See, he's already doing it. Did you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, did you catch the eye
Fucking
roll?
Curious George. Here we go.
Well, no. And I think this is really important for the listeners to understand. So there's like so many things like in my head. I'm like, I'm so proud of you guys for tackling that because you could have said, oh, thanks, but no thanks, because I don't know what it goes into creating a flow. That's all new territory. Like, and
Yeah.
anxious territory because you know that like it's not like you can throw something together and like you have to do something good.
Well,
You're going to be televised. There's hundreds of thousands of people. You don't want it to look like shit, but how do you go about it? And so can you take us through a little bit of that, because I know this is sometimes when anxiety kicks in for people like us. And so I think it's really
why?
important for you to share it.
First off, I didn't know. I don't know how it is in each city. I'm guessing it's probably the same thing. But there's two companies here that you were able to use to that. We went with ABC floats, so they actually built the float for us. Actually,
Yeah.
there's a design. So first, when he called me, I'm like, what the fuck? I got to build a float. Where am I going to build a float? Where am I going to store the float? So like, first my head is like, I literally thought I was going to have to build my own float.
Right.
So then I started asking some people before I said yes. Somebody who owned company, I'm like, hey, can I store a float, at your place? Because I'm thinking in my head that I've got to build this whole thing. So find out that I didn't have to build it. I worked with this company to create the design. And then they did everything else. Obviously, they built it, they created it, they brought it down there. So it was down there with a car that towed it. The driver stayed with it. We didn't have to, we didn't have to do anything. They were did an amazing job. So we just had to show up there. It was set up right in line. We just had to get there and and be in one piece.
Right. But I mean, and I know I said this to you, but like, you should be really proud of yourself that you were like, you know what? I'm going to take on something that I have no idea. And this brings us to, I know there was a couple different things that we wanted to talk about, but the reason why I wanted to kind of go into this way is because there's a lot of people that would just say no right away. No, oh no, I don't know what to do. And that makes me really scared. Now, you would always say like, I feel like in a number of years ago, you might have been like, nope, I don't think I want to tackle that. I could be wrong, but I think as you're getting more confident and comfortable in the things that you know and are like, you know what, this is important for the foundation. I'm going to set aside my own anxiety because I know what this could do. And this could just lead to me helping more kids, right? This is more exposure for the foundation because that's just going to help me be able to help more families and more kids. So I'm going to suck it up and figure it out. And you did. I mean, I remember you calling me and be like, do you know how to build a float? And I started laughing and I was like, okay, I know when we talk about my
Yeah.
creativeness, building a float is not part of my creative out. Like I will.
I was gonna have to put my tool belt on and
Yeah,
get my
right.
tools out and start hammering it. Well,
But you would have. I mean, that's the thing. You
I would have
also would
shut
have.
it down for sure. A number of years ago, obviously, having Elizabeth helping and being there to support,
It's huge.
catching me when I fall daily with this, is huge. But the foundation didn't mean as much, and that it doesn't. The way it's going to sound, it wasn't as important to me 4 years ago as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Is because I didn't learn the full complexity of the dyslexic world completely until the last couple of years. It took me. So it always meant it was always the most important thing to me since I started it. But the impact, and I guess we found the way to be most influential the last couple of years. So means even more to do things like this. Like I had somebody's like, oh, did you get any money? Like, no, it wasn't about money. It's about
Yeah.
exposure, right? You got to spend, just why do the rich get richer, right? Because they have the money to invest, right? That's, unfortunately, it's the same thing with us. It's you got to get exposure. People aren't going to donate to your foundation if they don't know about your foundation.
Well, and this is what makes me so proud and happy for all of it, because we've talked about this before, that sometimes it just takes one person to see and hear you to make you feel like, okay, I can do this. And that's what you've collected in the last number of years. You've collected people that you've let in, that you're like, okay, I'm going to let you in and see where you go. Okay, you keep showing up, you keep helping. And that has happened to then let you be like, okay, I can take a breath, and you can let some big things and good things come into your life because you're opening yourself up in a way that is vulnerable. It's like, okay, I know I need support, I need help. And it's a really beautiful thing to be watching and to be a part of, because I know how special you are and what you can do, and to know that the world just keeps opening up and these things keep happening is just like a really beautiful thing. And I know you were so anxious about like parking and getting there, and we've talked about those kind of things. And it made me anxious when you were talking about it. I was like, oh fuck, I hate that shit too. Like getting to the airport and all that, even though I don't mind traveling, you get this anxiety. And I think a lot of people do, but there's a different heightened sense to it when you suffer from anxiety with the 5Ds.
Yeah, my anxiety, and if it is bad. Especially you're going into, just like probably anybody else, going into places and scenarios that you don't understand. And that's why my routines, going back to the hockey, the rituals, call it routines, were exactly the same. I knew exactly. That's why I'd come home and I watch the same thing over and over again. I never turn on something new. Like now, I'll turn on the golf channel and watch that for 20 hours because I'm not guessing what's coming next. And the anxiety we live with every day, all day long, so go back to the weekend is like, okay, where do we park? First off, I don't know downtown Chicago. I've never lived down there. I've always lived in the suburbs. I've never been a city guy. I'm a country boy. So anytime we go in there, only time I go down there, very rarely for dinners. Years back, only time I go down there when I was go get drunk and do stupid shit, and then Uber back home. So going into the city, for me, I have anxiety about it because I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I cannot get anywhere without using navigation because I don't go down there, don't know down there. Then now you're talking about a couple 100,000 people. Okay, where does everybody park? Right? Where do we have to park? We got to carry all this stuff in. We got to be at the float now. The float is the foundation, a part of it. Right? Our name's out there, and it's not my name. It's something goes wrong with it. It's not my name that goes down. It's every kid that we're trying to help that's going to go down. We have 15, 20 people that are joining us on the flight. Are they all going to be there? Are they going to find out where they're going to be there? Are we going to end up being alone on the float? Like these are all the things that's
Oh, and it makes
going
making me
to,
anxious, makes me anxious right now. Jesus, but right.
because it's, and I always say this, I just said it, my name is obviously a part of the foundation, but if it does go down, meaning, something, the float looks bad, or it's something happens on the float, or this or that, right? It's not me that's gonna suffer from it all. It's all the kids that we're trying to help. So it's obviously every detail that's out there, right? Do we have enough of these hoodies? And it's because it's the little details that make or break individuals, groups, foundations, and companies, and trying to build something that we're trying to build. It's those details that matter. So it's all those little things. All right, where are we going to park, and how's the traffic? Again, traffic in Chicago is, I always say, it's one of the worst. I lived in LA, I lived in New York, and I lived in Atlanta, and nowhere near as bad as it is here in Chicago. So now we got that on top of it. Now, where are we going to park, and how are we going to get there? How far do we walk? And then we're going to driving down like, oh my God, dude, did we print off the paperwork? Did we need a badge? Do we need to, how do we get in? Where do we go? Like, so it turned out awesome. Obviously had no expectations because I didn't know what to expect. Floats, people. It was, only thing is there's a fuck ton of green.
And I so appreciate you sharing all this, because I do think there's something that people can understand a little bit more the way your mind works. But everything you were just saying there, I was like, I know I would have been the same way. But having someone with you to be able to take that like load off. Like I remember when traveling with the kids when I was younger, right? And I would do everything. And then the second Dan travels with us, there was one time I was like, I don't even know what hotel we're staying, what room we're in. Like, I don't know anything, because I was like, oh, I'm just going to follow. Right. So sometimes when you have to be in charge all the time, it's a really, and with all those details, as you said, you want to make sure that you have all the sweatshirts. Like, what if you get a sweatshirt? Because these are the things that people don't realize, that you're so fucking thoughtful, and they wouldn't know. They would have no idea. But I know you're like, I want to make sure that I have all the right sizes. If I don't have a right size, I don't want someone to feel like, oh my God, they didn't get this. And these are all the little details that you beautifully and stress yourself out, but that you think of because you think of others so much. And so people from the outside wouldn't know that, because of all the stuff that goes on in your head. And
nobody wants to be in this head for 5 minutes.
But it is, I mean, Brent, it really is like the fact that I'm so glad because I didn't want to ask you about the parking, because I was like, oh, if it was bad, because we all have these scenarios where we know, and this is like where the flow. Talk about the flow. There you go, rolling your eyes. I was like, I know he didn't listen to me for a second. The flow. When I asked you way back in the beginning, like, isn't it amazing when things just flow? And you were like, nothing ever flowed. And then when you talked about it, I was like, okay, he really hasn't had a lot of flow. But like, even though all of that, like where you found the parking, that it was right across the street, that everything lined up. And those are the times where it's like, okay, I was meant to be there without as much stress, even though I had all that anxiety in the beginning, but it flowed. Like we've all been in parts where like we've done something and it doesn't flow, right? It's like, oh my God, oh my fucking God, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. And you're still doing it because you have to do it, right? Because you may be committed to something. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to think about that again at another date. Do I want to do that again? But everything flowed, it sounds like.
Yeah, so where the parade was just off Michigan Avenue. So there was a hotel. We're looking at, parking the night before. And the Hilton Hotel right on Michigan Ave has a parking garage connected to it. I think we saw it was like $80 to park. Pull up there, fine, $80. That's exactly what I was expecting. A lot's full. I'm like, fuck, turn couple, yeah. And then actually this parking garage was on the opposite side across the street. Everything did flow. Everything turned out better than can anticipate it. Could have laid out like the float being there. Didn't have to find a driver, right? Didn't have to find a pull cart. Didn't have to,
Yeah.
know where to go. Didn't have to be there, because we're talking, some of the people on the phone, like there was I think they said 150 floats or spots in the parade. Some are marching bands, some are trolleys, some were floats, some were cars, some are, but there's come going down this street and some going that down street and this, like, what time did they have to be there? What time did he have to be there in his spot for us to be there? Like,
Right.
So it was, it turned out great. Obviously, Mother Nature listened.
Yeah.
She was very nice.
Yeah. Because that night there was like, they were saying it was going to be huge
Oh,
winds. And then,
well, there's that storm. I'm sure people heard about it. Obviously,
yeah.
in I think St. Louis. I think there's 18 people when I saw were killed in these tornadoes.
Wow.
So this came through us overnight.
Right.
So like that would have, if that came a couple hours later, the parade wouldn't have gone on.
Right.
We had storms come through a suburb. We didn't have any tornadoes, high winds, ripped a roof off like a 110-year-old church. So, now we're watching this storm come through. All right,
that brings up some anxiety.
I think that came right. That came through at, I want to say it was midnight or something like that. So if that was pushed till in the morning, that the parade wouldn't have gone on, right? So then, like, mother, as a being a farm boy, I'm always looking at weather. So now we've got this storm coming through, and obviously the houses that were damaged, and then it went up to Georgia and right across. It was a bad storm. So we're watching that. What's that going to be? And then they're calling for 40, 50 mile an hour winds, and like it's
all of it.
It's a lot. I couldn't imagine being Michelle Coyne who runs the whole parade, and trying to organize all that, and hundreds of cops that were out. Streets are blocked, and they had boats, and when they died the river green, like it just. What she had to do to put it all together, and Mother Nature was, she was nice finally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that just makes me so happy because that's the flow I'm fucking talking about. That's the flow I'm talking about. And I want to
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the flow. I know other people can think of the flow means something else, but that's what I call it. But so that's another reminder is where people ask, how can we support? How can we support? How can we support? There's tons of support that's going to be happening down the road for people that align with our message. But in the meantime, going to the sopalfoundation.org and donating, because for us to be able to do events like the parade, and putting money into a float, those are all those things that we need support. Not only do we need support financially for then Brent to also do what he's doing every day, connecting and talking to people, but all the stuff that we're doing in the back end that a lot of people don't know about because it's hush hush. We can't talk about it. But there's a lot of stuff. But going and doing those things, that's the kind of stuff that we're able to get the foundation to a different level by bringing the voices, because we have financial support. So sopalfoundation.org. Did you want to add anything? Because I want to switch. You're going to see how you're going to watch this. Hopefully my internet doesn't go out. So people, I'm hoping this is all being recorded.
I'm going to
watch
this. All right.
Okay, you're going to watch this?
Let's see it.
Okay, let's see if you're going to be really impressed. So the thing that we just talked about, all the stuff that goes into doing what you're doing. So the stuff that you're learning, the stuff that you're doing on the back end for dyslexia. And we've talked about this in the beginning, way back when, where you're like, when people ask you what kind of education are you doing to learn, about dyslexia? And you kind of laughed. You're like, nothing. And I said to you, well, don't say nothing because they're testing you. You do so much
Well,
you're like the biggest researcher, and the people you talk to and getting all of different people from different states. Oh, this is happening here. This is happening here. Like, I think you have an investigator brain. I was thinking about this the other day, but go ahead. I know you have something to say.
well, and I was just going to clarify, some people, when they ask me if I've gone back to school for the education piece.
Right.
Right. So,
yes. And I love that you clarified that but this is everything we're talking about. What we do,
right.
we learn best living it and dealing with it and talking to people every day. What you fucking learn out of a book in this world is bullshit. And don't even get me started because you can hear I'm already getting ticked up. But that's what makes me so angry is when people will say that, because it's like this is not stuff that you learn out of a book. This is not stuff that you get in your PhD. Yes, you have an understanding about how the brain works, but you're fucking boots on the street, talking to people every fucking day, not just one, two, three. I mean, like so many people that you talk to and interact with and learn from about what their education system is doing, what they are, dealing with on a daily basis. Go ahead.
It's and the problem is that here, in the U.S. is it's a way government words things. We get this all the time tagging us in, Richard Branson shit or
that
all these people
film
that put the word dyslexia out there. A lot of it is smoking mirrors. It seems like they're doing good, but they're not. They're not behind the scenes. You can't build a house by the roof down. And that's what a lot of these people are doing, is trying to build it from the roof down because they benefit financially. They don't give a shit about your kid. So when I say roof down is they put it out there, right? Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. But you have no idea behind the scenes what they're actually doing. And not a lot, there's not a lot of that. You can't build a house roof down, right? So it's to have the full grasp of concept, you've got to understand, and to make a major impact in the world, the way I'm trying to do is you've got to know everything inside and out from start to finish. And I got a pretty good grasp on this world of dyslexia. One, I'm an expert in it because I've lived with it 48 years. And the other one is because I know how they try and word things. I know how they try and place things. I know how they try and say things to make it look like they're doing good to the, basically to the naked eye, right? But truly they're not. And it's planting little bombs and exposing them little by little, till some point in time, the whole bridge will collapse and so will they.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, if you look at the people that are out there putting stuff together, they have money themselves that they're like, oh, I'm just going to spend it and putting it. So my face is all over and it's like dyslexia, dyslexic university, all these different things. Oh, we're going to teach the teachers in New York City. And then when we start peeling back the things, it's like, okay, those are just a lot of words. And this is like something that people talk about all the time, right? You could speak, but what are your actions? What are your actions behind the scenes? What are you doing behind the scenes? Is it like, oh, you're on camera? Oh, da 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 da. And then you go back and you don't even think and talk to dyslexics, about dyslexia or think about it. And there's a lot of that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize because what they're seeing in media, on social media, is a different picture that's being portrayed, which is all fine because you know what, they can stay in their lanes and there's other lanes to be had. But the thing that is interesting, and we were talking about probably last week and a couple times, because we have people close to us family, friends that know us from all of our lives and just maybe recently have had some discoveries with their children or they own discoveries because of conversations we're having. And it's
Mm.
so interesting when people they have to go on their own path to find their own journey, even though they'll ask for advice. You give them advice, and it's like almost they do the opposite. However, there's an outer circle of people that come to the foundation because they hear and they see, and they're like, oh, I know Brent can help me go to my IAP meeting. He can help me go through this. And sometimes there's some days that it's like, it's exhausting because the people closest to you, sometimes you're like, you know them, so you have a deeper love. And I know what are you going to say? I'm trying to read your face right now. It's making a lot of faces. So I'm going to stop what I'm saying there and let you.
No, it's just as when I played hockey, my kids used to tell me, I don't know how to play hockey. What? Because I'm dad.
Oh my God! Right.
Right. All right. Because I'm dad. Leave the rink. I'm still changing diapers. Sometimes you've got to be there, and with your kids a lot, you got to be there to pick them up. You got to let them scrape their knee. And the hard part about the 5Ds and diagnosis, no parent wants to hear their kid is sick. No parent wants to hear the kid is struggling. No parent wants to know that their kid isn't where they want them to be.
And has a long journey ahead of them.
Right. No parent wants that. Every parent wants their kid to be the best and feel the best and look the best and be the smartest. Like that's life. So a lot of times dealing with this stuff is number one. I've said this to a number of parents. Like I want my kid to be okay with with their dyslexia. I'm like, well, first off, is I need you to be okay with yours.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction. I don't think it's hereditary. I think it's from childhood trauma. Now, if your parents, mom or dad, were an alcoholic, well, you were abused. That's how it goes, child. Right. So, to your inner circle, right, the people that are close to you, that almost do the opposite. I don't. It may seem like they're doing the opposite right now, but they have to skid and they have to be there. Fall. You got to be there to skin their knee, and you got to be there to help them pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows as much as I do how frustrating it is to be there to do that. But this is the journey that we're on. When it comes to, it's not a broken leg, it's not a broken arm, it's it's not a hangnail. It's something that's our brain is wired that way. This is who we are. And the quicker the parents get the exception of accepting it, the quicker the kids can.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, like, as you were talking, I was thinking, and I think it's really true, us as just humans, we also sometimes want to be the ones that fix or help the situation. We don't want to admit, oh, wait, I don't know what's going on, right? We don't want to be like, no, I don't know this world. I'm going to figure it out myself. And that's again human nature. I've been there where if someone comes and gives me advice because I'm going through something maybe that they've been through, and if you're not ready to receive it because, as you said, you haven't dealt with your own stuff, or you're like, flailing, drowning, and you're like, I'm just trying to survive and I can't take anything else in because I just need to survive. I'm in survival mode. There's so many things that go into it. And sometimes it's hard on our sides to watch because we're like, okay, we know we know what's happening here. However, we need to, respect it.
Well, and the other part is that a lot of time the information that we are giving is so drastically different than you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
Example, if you talk probably 9 out of 10 people and said the school system isn't for your kids, they'd say, you're full of shit, but it's not. So you kids are just a number. People are like, no, they're not. They care. Again, they don't. So it's not like it's a small small difference. It's a massive difference. It's almost the opposite a lot of times. Correct me if I'm not wrong. Of the information that we're telling them to do is almost opposite of what they think. So anytime you have an individual, no matter who you are, where you're from, that I need you to do the opposite, there's always pushback because that's a drastic change.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a little bit, right? So it's if we're going down First Avenue, all right, turn on the second. No, we're supposed to be on 20th. How did I get? How is it? So that comes into play to what you're talking about is if our information wasn't so different, they may accept it quicker. But it's just such a different world, and such a drastic change from what they thought, and then that thought is okay. Why is it so different? Why didn't I understand it? Why didn't I know that? Like, why are we going from here to here? Like, how did I, what's wrong with me? How is it so different? How did I, and then it goes, and then they turn it back on themselves.
Yeah. And so I want to change some of your semantics and see what your thoughts are. So yes, I think the information we give is very, very different. I want to say it builds on what, and I'm going to be very specific. I'm talking about like in an IEP meeting with a school, like the diagnosis on how to get diagnosed and then how you approach the school. So that's what I'm talking about instead of talking in a code, which I was talking before. So when we tell there are certain schools, certain districts that have more knowledge of dyslexia and how they think a child should be taught, learn, whatever, pulled out, whatever, how they should be intervened. There are some districts and some states that have I want to say a stronger understanding. Now, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not saying that this state, that because again, it's coming from non-dyslexics, but it's like maybe they have had some, they've had some good results in their school districts because maybe they don't have like severe dyslexic. So it's like, okay, these kids seem to be improving a little bit. I mean, I'll bring it back to like when Connecticut, they're like, no, Montgomery's improving. But what we said was, and my mom was the one that said this to me. And I was like, oh, wait. She's like, honey, he's improving because yes, they're intervening, but look where the rest of the class is. The rest of the class keeps improving at higher rates. And I was like, oh, she's like, so he's just going to keep getting more and more and more behind. I would never have thought that, right? So these are the things that a teacher, a district is going to tell you when you're sitting in your IEP. No, look, all of the services that we're giving your kid are working because look at their numbers. But what you always have to ask is, well, where are the rest of the kids' numbers, right? And that's something that parents, and so I'm not saying that I'm disagreeing with you at all because I'm totally agreeing. I'm building on it. The thing that's so crazy is as a parent, and I'm just going to go back to like when I went, I'm not someone, I shouldn't say that. I don't mind to get in it. I don't mind to get into an argument. I really don't. But when you don't understand something and you're not fully comfortable with what a teacher or a lawyer, whatever, is saying, you're not going to go and argue just to argue because you're like, well, now, I don't know what I'm arguing about. Right. So you kind of just sit back because you're like, I'm so lost and I don't know where to go. And so as a parent, now also on this side, like I knew that day that I was like, oh no, now I just have to fucking argue everything and I'm going to learn because knowledge is power, right? So that's the thing that we really empower parents to be like, these are all the things that you have to understand. This is probably what the school is going to say. These are the things that you have to fight back and ask for. And there's a lot of parents that are like, well, I don't really feel comfortable fighting back and asking for it because it's conflict and people don't love conflict. They don't love conflict when they are not 100% comfortable in what they're conflicting about. Yeah, that's correct. I didn't know if I was going to use that right. And so there is so many things. So it's not that we're doing completely saying the opposite of what to tell people, but we're building on what the school is doing, even though the school is like, okay, this is what your kid needs. It's like, show me and then prove it. And so we're giving the kind of knowledge. So finish because now I'm going to start babbling.
No,
Did that
and
make
that goes
sense?
back to no, it makes sense, but parents wouldn't know. Again, you wouldn't have known to ask that question if your mom didn't say that.
Totally. I would have been fine. I
Right.
would have been like, oh, good. He's improving.
Right. 100%. Right. So that's, those are the things that go on, in this journey. So that's kind of, and that's part of the opposite question.
No, you're 100% right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the opposite question. Almost the opposite. You would never ask that question if you didn't. And your mom was a teacher. She asked that question. We got states right now that kids have services. They've gotten them up to a certain level. Now they want to take the services away. Well, right now, hang on. These services help get this kid up. Kid's still not even at par the rest of his classmates, and now you want to take it away?
Mm-hmm.
How to make sense, and I think, it was the parking garage scenario.
Yeah, I love that scenario that we had in last episode, or 2 episodes probably when this goes out. Mm-hmm.
Right, everybody, on lobby floor, on the level floor, is everybody. Somebody with dyslexia is living on, parking garage 1. Now you're 1 level below them. Somebody with, dyslexia and, 2 of the Ds. Now you're on parking level 2. 3 Ds, parking level 3. 4 Ds. So I'm living on parking level 4. So I'm 4 floors below normal. But you're not going to, you give me some resources to help me. Okay, it helps me. Now I'm only at 2. Well, you're right. I went up 2. So it's how you word things, right?
Yep.
You went up 2 levels, but I'm still 2 levels behind. So they'll always say you went up 2 levels, but they'll never look at it and say, oh, but you're still 2 levels behind the normies. So those are 2 different ways of saying it.
Yep. And
that's how that, and that's kind of where I go with it.
Yep. No, and I love that. And I want to be very clear in stating that the school knew that Montgomery was not going to catch up. And they were okay with being like, okay, this is what we're doing because we don't want to say anything because we don't want to get sued and have to have money go out of the district because we can't teach him, right? We can't get him to be level with the class. They all knew that, the principal, the teachers, and they let a parent, myself, sit there and think, oh, he is still improving. So this is great. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's where then I go fucking ape shit, right? Because it's like, wait, you knew that what you're doing is just like so he's always going to struggle because you can't teach him and bring him there instead of being like, you know what, we can't do it. Like there's a better route. Like beyond. So that's where we come at it and really tell parents like they know what they're doing. And it's really sad because it's like that's where your kid's a number, because they can't get emotionally attached to that kid, because then they're not going to feel comfortable being like, right, your kid's getting fucked right now.
And and a lot of times when we talk about here, we talk about schools, certain schools, dyslexic schools, or schools that have resources, or schools that have understanding of learning disorders, do the same thing. Let's be very clear. Certain schools will only take certain kids so that they could go up and use those numbers.
Right, that they know that they could teach them. Right.
So these are people like, oh, it's great. This school, they always do, and they know whether it's a dyslexic school and it's the best and they know what they're doing. Well, not saying that they don't know what they're doing, but does your kid fit in to their model to make sure your kid is successful so their school looks good?
Mm-hmm.
Not for every dyslexic.
Yep.
Why didn't my kid get in? Well, because they knew that they were going to have to do a little bit more, or your kid didn't fit into their business model. Business.
Yep.
A number, not a kid.
And we're going to leave it at that. I'm sorry that my internet has been in and out, because I'm sure that's been difficult for you. You're like, and we're still talking. You guys, you know what I say?
You live in New York.
Mercury in retrograde, I guess, is worse to hear.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
So you guys, I say it every single time: like, rate, review, and share, because you don't know who's sitting there that is starting this journey or is in this journey, who is coming up on their end of their IEP meetings and are like, what do I need to ask for? Like, we had a really tough year. How do I not have my kid have such a tough year? There's so many things that go into it. So you need to share this because someone needs to hear it. And don't forget to go to sopalfoundation.org to donate. Look at our Instagram, because you can also see the St. Patrick's Day festivities, and keep in line with what we're doing here. Thank you, Brent.